At Christmas, my mom whispered, "No one wants your crying baby here." My dad added, "You should have stayed home. It's better without you." I just said, "Then so is my money." They laughed like it was a joke. But after 3 weeks, their lives started to unravel. I knew Christmas was going to be rough this year. But I went anyway, mostly because I still had this tiny flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents would see me differently now. Not as the 19-year-old who threw her life away, but as someone who's still standing, still trying, still fighting. And it's not like they ever told me to come. They don't invite me anymore. But I guess I thought showing up with a homemade pie and Eli in a red reindeer onesie would soften something in them. I don't even know why I try. It had snowed that morning, and by the time I got there, the driveway was already packed. My older brother's SUV was taking up the spot I used to park in. I carried Eli inside in his car seat, the wind freezing my fingers as I fumbled with the baby bag. No one came out to help. I knocked, and after a pause, my mom opened the door and stepped aside without saying anything. The warmth hit me like a slap. Not comfort, just a reminder of what I was walking into. The house smelled like cinnamon and ham. The same old Christmas decorations were up, but they looked different now, like props on a stage. My dad was watching football. My brother's kids were tearing into early presents. And his wife, Qley, was already halfway through a glass of wine. No one said hi. Eli started fussing, just a little, nothing dramatic. I rocked the car seat gently, hoping he'd calm down. That's when my mom leaned over like she was fixing the wreath on the sideboard and whispered it real low. "No one wants your screaming baby here." I just froze. It didn't even register at first. I thought maybe I heard her wrong. Then my dad, without looking away from the game, added, "You should have stayed home. It's better without you." I looked at my brother, but he was pretending to play with one of his kids. I didn't say anything. I just stood there like an idiot, holding the bag of gifts I bought with the last $200 I had after rent. Things for them. Candles for my mom, a book for my dad, toys for the nieces. I didn't buy myself anything this year. Couldn't. Then I said it. Not loudly. Just quietly like I was thinking out loud. "Then so is my money." They laughed. Not a hard laugh. Just that dry little scoff they do when they think I'm trying to be dramatic. My mom waved me off. My dad chuckled and went back to his beer. My brother finally looked up and said, "Hey, come on. It's Christmas." Like that meant anything. I left the pie on the counter and turned around. No one tried to stop me. I buckled Eli back in while he screamed in the back seat, and I drove away without saying goodbye. On the way home, I stopped at a Walgreens just to sit in the parking lot. I cried until I felt sick. Not just because of what they said, but because I realized something I'd been avoiding for a long time. They don't love me. Not the way parents are supposed to. Maybe they never did. But the craziest part, that wasn't the moment everything fell apart. That came later. Much later. The next morning, I woke up before Eli did. For once, the apartment was quiet. I lay there in the dark, listening for that first little whimper that usually came around 6:30, but it didn't come. I checked my phone, not because I wanted to, but because I knew there'd be something from my mom. There always was. After things got tense, 3 messages. One was a blurry photo of the dinner table from last night. Everyone was smiling, even the kids. My brother was holding up a glass of wine. Qley had her arm around my mom. The caption just said, "Nice evening. Hope you and the baby got rest." The second message was short. "Next year, just get a sitter. That way, everyone can enjoy themselves." The third one was worse somehow. Just 4 words. "Don't be so sensitive." I didn't answer. I put the phone face down on the counter and started making a bottle. That morning, I had a deadline for one of my freelance gigs, a product review article for some travel website. The irony was painful. I hadn't left the apartment in days except for gas and diapers. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor with my laptop propped on a pillow while Eli kicked beside me, smiling like he hadn't screamed for 6 hours straight the night before. I submitted the article, sent the invoice, and opened my banking app. That's when I saw it. An automatic payment had gone through. $89.67 to Spectrum. My parents' internet bill. I'd been covering it for months without really thinking. It started as a one-time favor after my mom's card got declined during the summer. Then it just stuck. I opened the transaction history. More charges. $112 for their electric bill 2 weeks ago. $55 to Boost Mobile, my dad's phone. $34.80 for their water bill back in November. That was money I didn't have. Money I'd been pulling from grocery funds, rent, diapers. I remembered eating dry cereal for 3 days last month and blaming myself for being disorganized. It wasn't disorganization, it was them. What really got me was the total nearly $900 since September. And not once had either of them said thank you. Not once had they asked if I was managing. Okay. Not once had they said anything at all. They just expected it like it was some kind of invisible tax I owed for becoming a mother before they said I was allowed. I sat there for a while just staring at the screen, listening to Eli make happy little noises on his playmat. Then I opened all the accounts one by one. The utility sites, the mobile carrier, the bank. I canceled every autopay, every safe card, every reminder. And then I opened the family group chat. Just so you know, I won't be covering any bills going forward. Things were tight, and I needed to focus on taking care of Eli and myself. Simple, direct, no anger. No explanations. My brother saw it first. He didn't say anything, just sent a thumbs up. That was his way of staying neutral. Not helping, but not throwing me under the bus either. My mom left it on read for hours. When she finally replied, it was just, we'll figure it out. Thought you understood how family works. But my dad sent an entire monologue that he wrote about sacrifice, about duty, about how I wouldn't even have an apartment or a baby if it weren't for the values they gave me. About how selfish I sounded, how I was letting bitterness ruin the holiday spirit. That's what he called it. Ruin, like I was some villain for refusing to keep paying their bills while I rationed formula and bought diapers 2 boxes at a time on Amazon using gift cards from online surveys that I didn't reply to that either. I just sat on the couch that night after Eli finally fell asleep and thought about how much I'd let slide. The guilt, the manipulation, the little comments that started the day I told them I was pregnant. My mom said I'd ruined her retirement plans. My dad told me to take care of it before it was too late. I didn't listen, and I think they hated me for that. Not openly, just in those slow, suffocating ways that take years to recognize. The week passed quietly. No messages. No calls. Not even a meme from my mom, which was unusual. The group chat went dead. I knew that silence meant something was coming. They were planning something. I could feel it. I just didn't think they'd take it that far. The silence lasted exactly 6 days. On the 7th, my landlord called. I let it go to voicemail. I was pacing the apartment with Eli, trying to calm him after another screaming fit. His stomach had been off all week. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time. I was behind on freelance work and surviving on toast and black coffee. The voicemail was short. My rent hadn't gone through. I thought it had. I always scheduled it for the 1st, and it had never been an issue. I opened my banking app. That's when I saw it. The payment hadn't failed. It had been reversed. Someone had logged in and canceled the transfer. At first, I panicked, thinking my account had been hacked. Then I checked the login history. The device was familiar, an old laptop I hadn't used in over a year. The one I left behind when I moved out. My dad used to borrow it. Said he didn't trust his own computer with online banking. I checked my email. Next point, one of my best clients, a travel blog that paid well and consistently, had canceled our project. Apparently, I declined a meeting and said I wasn't available anymore. Except I never saw the invite. I searched my spam folder, and there it was, a calendar request with a reply from my account saying, not available at this time. That job was worth $600. I was counting on it to get us through the next 2 weeks. Formula, wipes, rent, everything. That I didn't have to guess who did it. They didn't yell. They didn't send threats. They just quietly unraveled things behind the scenes, one thread at a time. They knew how close to the edge I was. How often I mentioned money being tight. And I think that's exactly why they did it. Because I said no. Because I cut off the money. Because I set boundaries. That night, I felt something settle deep in my stomach. Not fear. Just the realization that I'd spent years handing power to people who didn't deserve it. Passwords. Trust. Money. Access. All of it. I'd made everything easy for them while they made everything harder for me. So I changed every password. Closed the bank account I'd had since I was 16. Moved everything to a new platform with 2-step verification. Deleted my backup email, the one I knew my dad had access to. I even replaced my SIM card. Then I blocked them. All of them. My mom. My dad. My brother. His wife. That I didn't explain. I didn't warn them. I just cut the wire. For the first time in my life, I didn't care if they were confused, hurt, or angry. I didn't care if they thought I was being dramatic. I was done. Of course, it didn't end there. 3 days later, a relative I barely spoke to, my mom's cousin Brenda, messaged me on Facebook. She said my parents were worried sick and couldn't reach me. Asked if everything was okay. I ignored it. Then my brother messaged me from an unfamiliar number. He said he didn't want to get involved, but mom and dad were confused about why I disappeared. He said they were hurt and didn't understand what they'd done wrong. I stared at that message for a long time, because they did understand. You don't sabotage someone's rent or steal their income by accident. You don't decline a job offer using your own daughter's account unless you know exactly what you're doing. What they didn't understand was that I wasn't coming back this time. I wasn't going to explain. I wasn't going to forgive and pay and show up like always. That version of me didn't exist anymore. And the strangest part was that they still thought they had some kind of hold over me. They had no idea what was coming. I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted peace. To stop waking up every day bracing for another obligation I never agreed to. I thought blocking them would be enough. But with people like my parents, silence becomes its own kind of war. It started quietly. My mom made a new Facebook account under the name Linda M. No photo, no friends, just a message. Hope you and the baby got some rest. The same wording she'd always used. She thought she was being subtle. She wasn't. Then a freelance client forwarded me an email from a burner account. No signature. Just a warning saying I wasn't stable and shouldn't be trusted around children. I stared at the screen for a long time. They hadn't crossed a line, they bulldozed it. The wording sounded like my dad. I lost that client soon after. That night, I locked everything down. New passwords. Two-factor authentication. I closed anything that felt vulnerable and even changed my phone number, paying a fee I couldn't afford just to make it harder for them to reach me. Then I checked an old credit card where I'd added my parents as authorized users years ago. I found dozens of small charges, food, Amazon, even a $212 order in my sister's name. I paid the balance and shut the card down. I also called every utility still tied to my name and removed myself. By the end of the week, their services began shutting off. At 11:48 p.m. one night, my brother called. I let it go to voicemail. He was yelling, saying the power was out. Dad was furious, mom was crying, and they were blaming me. He said I was ruining their lives. I didn't respond. They weren't falling apart because I attacked them. They were falling apart because I stopped holding everything together. Soon after, two relatives reached out quietly. They said they'd always noticed the tension growing up. One of them sent groceries, diapers, formula, wipes, and a note saying, "You're not alone." I stood in my kitchen staring at the bags for a long time. For once, no one wanted anything from me. For a few days, the silence felt like relief. Eli slept better. I caught up on work and stretched every meal. But I knew it wouldn't last. Then the pediatrician's office called, asking if I'd requested to transfer Eli's medical records. I hadn't. I locked his file immediately. That same day, I found out I'd been removed from a family group chat. The final blow came when a podcast contact forwarded me an email. Someone had warned her about my mental health and suggested I was unfit as a parent. The tone was fake concern, polite, calculated, familiar. The next morning, my brother left another voicemail. He said mom and dad were talking about legal advice and grandparent visitation rights. He sounded exhausted, like he knew it was wrong, but didn't know how to stop it. Hearing the word court still triggered something in me. Panic, anger, grief, even though I knew they had no case. No contact. No relationship with Eli. Nothing. That night, I held Eli and promised him I'd keep him safe. And that's when it finally sank in. They would never stop. Not out of love, but because they couldn't stand losing control. They didn't want family. They wanted obedience. Brenda messaged again, saying my parents were generous and that I was acting out of pride. She said I could still fix it if I just apologized. For a moment, I almost did. Then my doorbell rang. Groceries from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. Inside was a note. "You're doing what I should have done a long time ago. Keep going." That's when I realized not everyone believed their version of the story. The holidays passed. I stayed silent. They got louder through other people, but quieter in ways that mattered. My brother kept calling, saying I'd made my point. But I wasn't making a point. I was protecting myself and my son. Word still reaches me. Quiet messages from relatives saying they remember how things really were. How I was treated differently. How my parents mocked me, minimized me, used me. The more I say nothing, the clearer it becomes. They can't control the narrative without access to me. They say I'm dramatic, unstable, bitter. But fewer people believe it now. One aunt even asked my mom what she did to hurt me. My mom's answer was, she just wants attention. That told me everything. Eli turned 6 months old last week. I made cupcakes and sang to him alone. Just us. Later, my dad sent one last message. We're still your family. One day you'll see. I didn't reply, because family isn't who shares your name. It's who respects your boundaries without demanding explanations. Now, when I look at photos of Eli sleeping, I feel peace. Not victory, just calm. Life is still hard. Money is tight. Some days are overwhelming. But even then, I don't miss them. Not their approval, not their money, not their version of love, because I finally understand. It was never real. It was conditional. And now I'm